for 30 plus years. I've seen every type of child grow up.
Instead of giving me what I wanted, she gave me what I needed, which was truth.
Don't let emotions win. Let truth win.
Do your very best, and you should have a lot of fun while you do it. And the better you get at something, the more fun you're going to have at something.
You moms and dads are wired with everything you need to be a parent to a great kid.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. This is episode number 98, and I'm your host, Dr. Meg Meeker. Please excuse my voice today. I'm getting over a cold and got a little bit of laryngitis. My guests today are Jordan Kassalow and Jennifer Krause. They have co-authored the book, Dare to Matter, Your Path to Making a Difference Now. It's a fabulous book. Before we get into the program, let me tell you a little bit about Jordan and Jennifer. Jordan is an optometrist and social entrepreneur. He is a partner at a thriving practice in New York City, and he's also the founder of Vision Spring, an award-winning social business that works to restore eyesight to more than 2.5 billion people who live in the developing world in extreme poverty and need nothing more than a simple pair of eyeglasses to see. Vision Spring has been internationally recognized by the Skoll Foundation, the World Economic Forum, the Aspen Institute, and the World Bank. Jennifer is a rabbi and the author of The Answer, Making Sense of Life, One Question at a Time. Her writing and commentary have been featured in Newsweek, the New York Times, Huffington Post, the Daily Beast, Time.com, and O Magazine. Dubbed one of New York City's hippest rabbis and the Jewish Katie Couric by WNET's Metro Focus, Jennifer served as the High Holidays rabbi at Manhattan's 92Y, the first woman to hold that post in 92 years, 145-year history. I know you're going to love my interview with these two very smart, articulate people. And as always, I'll share my points to ponder for you to start using right away. And parents, as a reminder, don't just download the episodes, click subscribe, because when you do that, you're joining my parenting revolution. And boy, do we need a revolution today, parents, in this crazy world our kids are growing up in. Not only are we on iTunes, but the PGK podcast is also available in the Google Play Store and on Stitcher. So no matter where you get your podcast, subscribe today and don't miss a single episode. I want you now to listen in on a conversation I had with Jordan Kassalow and Jennifer Krause. Well, Rabbi Jen Krause and Dr. Jordan Kassalow, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Our pleasure.
You know, your book, Dare to Matter, Your Path to Making a Difference Now, is really one of the most inspiring books I've ever read. And can you talk about the premise of the book?
Sure. The premise of the book is quite simple, and that is, as individuals, as human beings, we have two fundamental drives. One is to care for ourselves and our families and have a nice life. And the other is to care for something bigger than ourselves, so we leave the world a better place because we are in this world. And the book really asks the question of how do you integrate those two very human needs into one lifetime?
That's a great summary of the book. And I think what you're talking about will really resonate with listeners, but they'll say, well, okay, but I haven't gotten there yet. When and how was your passion ignited that changed the direction of your life or career as you outlined it in the book?
Well, I think we each have a different answer to that. I'll jump in first. For me, my passion was ignited in a two-chapter story. The first chapter, I found myself in Alaska climbing amongst some of the most beautiful wilderness area in the world. And I got to the top of a mountain in the pouring rain, and the world was conspiring to tell me that I was nothing, that I was meaningless. It was my dust in the wind moment, if you will. And I remember as a 23-year-old person, I just hated that message that I didn't matter. And I literally remember screaming back at the wind, insisting that I did matter, but I didn't really know how. And I walked down from that mountain knowing that whatever direction my life took, no matter what I did for a career, I wanted mattering. I wanted the importance of my work to be at the center of my life. Fast forward 6 months, I was joining an organization that brought eye care to underserved populations in Latin America because I had enrolled in school to be an eye doctor. And my very first patient was a 7-year-old boy, and he was from the School for the Blind. And when he came to my station, we examined him and realized that he wasn't blind. He was just extremely nearsighted and needed a very, very strong pair of glasses. And I put those glasses on his face, and when he saw for the first time, it really was a moment that changed both of our lives. I always quote Mark Twain here, where I say that the 2 most important days of your life, and this is a Mark Twain quote, the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. And that was really the day that I found out why.
Jen, did you have a moment where you sort of felt a passion ignite in you that changed the direction of your life?
I think I had a series of moments that all led to a decision to go to seminary, to become a rabbi. One of the things that I love most about what I've had the privilege of doing for the last 20 years as a rabbi and educator who's worked primarily with adults is to give people the inherited wisdom that already belongs to them, but to help them connect with it. But then to see them find the kind of moments that Jordan just described, to see the light bulb go off for them and to see them realize that they are here for a specific purpose and that it is one of their jobs while they're here to apply their purpose to something greater than themselves.
Mm-hmm. So you're both not really talking about finding an interest or finding, gee whiz, that would be a nice thing to do. You're really talking about a passion that is deeper, that ignites something deeper in you. As you said that, I think it was Jordan who said that God-given wisdom or that internal wisdom, maybe you said it, Jen. So you're really talking about opening yourselves to allowing, I guess you'd say, God to work in you, to sort of say, here's why you're on earth. Is that what you're really talking about?
I think it is our lifelong project to activate what is unique about each and every one of us and to understand that every day that we draw breath is a day that we're here to help heal the world. And that what we have to do in order to do that is to, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, unlock the quiet eminence of our being, to continue to open doors and windows inside of ourselves so that we can do what we and only we have been called to do. So it's not just one moment, it's a moment that should open onto a series of moments, a series of opportunities, but it is a process that we have to opt into. We have to proactively acknowledge, as Jordan acknowledged on that mountaintop. We have to acknowledge with a certain amount of audacity that we are, yes, a speck of dust. We are but dust and ashes, as we learn in inherited wisdom literature and biblical texts. We are, and yet the world was created for us, not in the sense that we're created to take from it, but that the world was created for us to change it. So there's something very big about our being here, but we have to decide that we want to activate the powers that we have to create lasting positive change.
Yes, and I would just add quickly that there's a big difference between living a life where life happens to you and living a life of intentionality. And I think what Jen and I are saying also in this book is that it is up to each of us to live a life with the stance of intentionality, that if we don't take, if you will, the bull by the horns, that we are not going to get the life that we want. And so just that change of perspective to walk through each day with intent of what you want your life to mean, not only to yourself and your family, but to the broader wellness of the world.
I think that part of it seems to me that you need to be intentional, and yet there's got to be some providence involved, because it's almost like you have to work to see, but you can't bring into reality what it is that you should see. You quote in your book a Jewish teaching that says, we walk with hearts closed, yet in a singular moment there's created solely for us. Our hearts are open. So you're really kind of talking about two things, aren't you? Allowing our hearts to be open to see what it is before us, a moment that comes, but we can't make the moment happen. Is that correct?
You know, what we talk about is the importance of a prepared heart. So if you take the example that I gave at the beginning of our conversation, the experience I had in Alaska opened my heart. And my heart became an antenna looking for, if you will, that providence, looking for ways in which I could make a difference in the world. And then when I met Raul, that 7-year-old boy, my heart was prepared to have and fully appreciate the miracle of that moment. Mm-hmm. If my heart wasn't prepared and I wasn't looking for a way to really engage in the world and make my life matter, that might have just been a cool story, a cool moment that I told my grandchildren, but it wouldn't have fundamentally changed the direction of my life.
And that's why we talk about meeting your miracle halfway. Mm-hmm. That if you have a prepared heart, if you have what we call in Jewish tradition, we call it kavanah, intentionality. If you walk with intentionality and a prepared heart, the world will conspire to help you. The world will lead you to the path that is your path.
I love that, because I think that it's exciting. I think that for anybody out there listening who says, you know, I just have kind of gone through my life and I have my job and I have my family and life is okay, you're really talking about living on a much deeper level. And that is sort of intentionally opening your heart to see what the world is bringing you. How do you open your heart?
Well, for me, again, I can speak to myself. It started when I had that divine moment, that mystical moment of recognizing that I was just a small part, but very much an important part of a greater whole, and that I saw myself as one, if you will, with the universe. It was one of those transcendent moments. And so one way to prepare your heart is to go inward and try to find that transcendent moment, whether it's climbing a mountain or meditating or being with loved ones. There's many different ways, and going to temple or to church. There's many different ways and countless stories of people who've had those transcendent moments of connecting to something much bigger than themselves and realizing that they were part of a greater whole. And once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize that, then by definition, your heart is open.
I agree with you. And I think that there comes a time for many people who have gotten to the place where you're talking about where, and I remember this happened to me, where I felt this is what I was born to do. I'm smack in the middle of my sweet spot. I see a need. I want to fill that need. And it has less to do with me and more to do with a bigger plan. And I'm part of this enormous plan, and to contribute, you know, what I have to this plan, which I think is very different, I'm hearing you say, from focusing on you and what you want and how you get that, which is really where our culture's leading us to go. I think with younger people in particular, sort of saying, what do you like? What do you want? What is best for you? and it's a focusing on inward, but you're talking about focusing inward, and yet the purpose of your life is outward, is to serve something greater than yourselves. Is that correct?
Yes. And in a way, we encourage people to start with exactly where they are, because we are in a culture of intense striving, and all of the meaning is out there somewhere. All of the success is out there somewhere. And so we all end up kind of looking everywhere but within ourselves. When we take an inventory of ourselves, when we learn to listen to ourselves, telling ourselves what we need to know about what we value most, what we care about most, why we're here. When we start with where we are, then our core values and the essence of who we are can then emanate into the heart of the world. So a lot of times when it comes to making a difference, we look outside of ourselves and think, if I find a big problem, then I can go and fix it. But we encourage people to start with exactly where they are and who they are. Because if you have a relationship with your own inner self, then you will be guided to the need that needs you most. That's something that we talk about in the book as well, finding the need that needs you most. But it doesn't start with a problem. It starts with what exists at the heart of who you are.
And it's increasingly difficult these days to do that. There's so much pressure from parents and schools and social media and society writ large to define success in a very specific, narrow way. I often say that according to society, there's a one-lane highway to success. If you don't go to these 10 schools and work at these 10 firms, you're not successful. But the truth is that there's an infinite lanes of success, and each one is embedded in each individual. And as Jen was saying earlier, our job is to unlock the ability of this next generation, to listen to that inner voice that has the pathway of their lane to success, because it's a success that's coming out and manifesting from them uniquely. But because there's so much pressure from society, that inner voice is often locked down and people don't get to listen to it. And so we encourage people to do everything they can to protect that inner voice and really listen to yourself, because so much wisdom is already embedded in you. And sometimes you just have to listen to yourself.
You know, one of the lines that I use when talking with parents who get very frustrated in their job, I can't do this and I can't do that, and they're doing really what you're talking about. They're putting so much pressure on themselves to perform or produce or whatever. And I said, you're wired with everything you need right now, today. But you're not going to see that unless you slow down and pay attention through prayer, meditation, whatever, to really see what is inside of you. And I think that a lot of people don't, but it's very important for parents, because that's our job as parents, is to help our kids slow down so that they can understand as they get older, this is what's inside of me, and this is what I'm good at, and here's what my passion is. And of course, it takes many years to get that. So I love that. You quote Forbes, an article in Forbes that said, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard and missed so much." And that is so true with parents and everybody in our culture today. We're almost riding what I call the crazy train. We're going really fast towards a goal. We're not really sure what the goal is, but we just need to pick up steam. And when we do that, we become very myopic in our focus. And isn't part of what you're trying to say to people, sort of get off of that for a little bit and quiet down? How do we, as people, start to recognize that inner wisdom, if you will, that inner voice that says, this is really what you were made to do?
Again, we tell people that they need to start small. So one of the things that we guide people to do, and the end of every chapter has a section called Take the Dare. So one of the things that we dare people to do is to spend even just a week at the end of each day making a list and saying, okay, what did I do today that really needed me? What did I do that really needed my time, my energy, my skill set? And what did I do today that fed me? What did I do that made me feel alive, that made me feel whole, that made me feel like I was making a contribution with who I am? And at the end of a week or at the end of 2 weeks or a month, to look at your lists. And just doing that can be a great way to prioritize, to look at how you're apportioning your time, where you could be repurposing your time and your energy so that what's happening is precisely what everybody wants, is that you are spending your days on balance, doing the things that make you feel alive and contributing to the life of the community, the country, the planet.
One of the things we also talk in the book, we have a chapter called Practice Dying, which is a depressing sounding chapter, but it's actually quite uplifting chapter in that it's really trying to celebrate life while you're here and trying to basically encourage people to write their own obituary and to take stock of those things that you want your life to represent and to stand for. And to see how, if you were to write your obituary, to see if there is a big difference between what you want it to say and where it's heading if you don't make a change. Aristotle talked about it as the deathbed test, that when you make believe you're on your deathbed and think about all the things that you regret and things that you would do different. And now the good news is you're not actually dying, but you've taken stock of those things that you would do different, and then go about each day doing those things that you wanted to do in order to represent the life that you wanted other people to respect you for and know you as.
You know, I love that advice, and I think sometimes you literally just need to sit down with pen and paper and write, you know, just what you said. At the end of my life, what do people want to remember me by? At the end of my life, what regrets could I have, and how can I avoid having those? Because we just get into this, we just start to spin so fast, you know, the anxiety and the depression that I see in kids, because I think a lot of times they're missing all of that. They're overstimulated. They're working for something and things that really don't matter. And I think they know it. Even little kids know it. You know, a lot of what I'm doing here is just to get by, or maybe it's even just kind of a waste of time, but yet I don't know how to move in a different direction.
Parents, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Jordan and Jennifer. We need to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of my conversation with Jordan Kassalow and Jennifer Krause. Designed with measurements from millions of women, Third Love's bra styles are made to fit your life. They have over 80 bra sizes, but know that the only one that matters is yours. Friends, I have worn Third Love bras and underwear, and I will tell you, you truly don't know that you have anything on underneath your clothes. They're comfortable, they don't pull, they don't stretch, they don't dig in, and they don't itch. Third Love bras are really delightful to wear. It is, hands down, the most comfortable bra you'll own. It has straps that won't slip, tagless labels, it's lightweight, has memory foam cups that mold to your shape. Plus, returns and exchanges are free and easy. In fact, thanks to Third Love's Perfect Fit Promise, every customer has 60 days to wear it, wash it, and put it to the test. If you don't love it, return it, and Third Love will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone, so right now, they're offering my listeners 15% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/Meg now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/Meg for 15% off today. TeenCounseling.com connects your 13 to 19-year-old with a licensed professional counselor right where they spend most of their time, on their smartphone. The process starts by completing a short questionnaire to help them understand your relationship with your teen and their specific needs. You'll then be matched with a skilled therapist in TeenCounseling.com's network of specialists who will be available to start communicating within 24 hours. You'll have the opportunity to review their credentials and directly communicate with a counselor to make sure it's a good fit. Then, once you approve, the counselor and your teen will begin communicating directly. Teen Counseling is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so it's easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's also more affordable than traditional counseling, and financial aid is available. So visit teencounseling.com/Meg and help your teen take charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. PGK with Dr. Meg Meeker listeners can get 10% off your first month at teencounseling.com/Meg.
In your book, you really do challenge people. It's funny that you mentioned that chapter because I thought, well, I think we'll not go to that one because I don't want people to, misunderstand what you're trying to say. So I love that you did. But you really help people face their lives, face their current lifestyle, their current priorities, their current beliefs, and say, is this what you want? And if not, how do you peel that away? So how would you encourage people to sort of say, okay, now I know where I want my life to go. I know how I want it to matter. Now, how do I shift from where I am now to where I know I need to be? That's hard.
Well, that really is a lifelong process. And I think that's another thing that might help us all get off of this kind of hamster wheel, is to understand that this is a lifelong process. And with any lifelong process and any type of lifelong growth, which is what we should be doing until the day that we die, we should always be challenged. We should always be becoming. That it's not linear. It's not like checking boxes. And we encourage people by making these values clarifications, by reminding ourselves what we're grateful for, what we're here for, what makes us feel nourished, what makes us feel whole, and then constantly trying to bring ourselves back to what we call the thread. That there's a thread of our lives, and if we're constantly evaluating, if you write that obituary and you put it away and you actually schedule in time once a month, every 6 months, to go back, look at it. Have you gotten away from your thread? Are there things that you would add? So these constant course corrections are in part how we grow into the selves that we most want to be and that we were created to be.
I think also that in the book we talk about, as Jen was saying, some small steps. If, like many people, life is busy and there's lots of pressures to just take care of yourself, get through the day, pay your bills, and just make it all work. And there's often very little time or extra energy to start to care about something beyond yourself. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, in the back of your heart, you know that that's something that you want to do. We all want to do that. We all want to be useful and helpful to others. And so start small, and whether it's a church group or something in the school, start volunteering an hour a week. See how it feels. If it lifts your heart, then do a little bit more. See if you can find 2 hours. If for some reason it's not quite jiving and it doesn't feel like it's energizing you, try something different. But just get out there and do it. Start to put yourself in those situations where you're interfacing with like-minded people, working on a problem that makes you angry, that you think there's an injustice in the world and you just really find it reprehensible. Start putting a little of your time and energy into solving that injustice. As Nike says, just do it. Just get out there and start.
Mm-hmm. I love the phrase that you say repeatedly, find the need that needs you most. And often those needs are right in front of our nose. Daring to matter doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and do an enormous work and change part of a country. You're talking about daring to matter in small things, and maybe they'll lead to big things, but maybe they won't. But does that really matter?
Well, all small things are big things, because we don't fully know what the puzzle of the universe is. We don't know where the small thing that we do will actually fit into a grander scheme of healing the world. And we do things one person at a time, one group at a time, one community at a time. In Jewish tradition, we are just today ending a time of the year that is the most sacred time of year, and it really is a time of intense introspection. And as we emerge from this period, we also complete one cycle of reading the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and then going back to the very beginning, quite literally, with the book of Genesis. That's what we do in the rhythm of Jewish life, is we read little bite-sized portion of all 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, the beginning of the Hebrew Bible. And when we finish, we just go back to the beginning. And so today in communities, in Jewish communities all over the world, everyone read the same verses. And one that I always find so stunning is that Moses, who is one of the prophets par excellence, tasked with an enormous project, right, of leading. I would
say so. It was pretty big. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. And guess what? He never gets to the promised land. He sits on a mountain and gets to peek into the promised land, but he knows that he's not going there. And the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, not the entire Bible, but the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, ends with his death. And the text makes a point of saying, never again did there arise amongst the people Israel a prophet like Moses. Because there is a person for every age. There's a leader for every time. And even Moses had to die. And even Moses contributed to the life of a people, but didn't finish the project. And the text goes out of its way also to say his eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. He could have done even more, but the world doesn't need a universe full of Moseses or of you or me or Jordan or Mother Teresa. The world needs every single person. And I think that it's so profound because it does go back to this idea of knowing that you and only you have been created for something. You may not know what it is, but you are here for a reason, and that your whole life can be filled with attempts to fulfill that promise. And you may not always know that you're doing it, but just the act of constantly putting yourself out there and making a contribution of self and time and energy and your unique skill set, that you are part of it.
You know, I love that story. I mean, it's about Moses, and one of the things that really strikes me as you move through the Torah and you know, the Old Testament, even more of that in the Old Testament, is you look at the people that God used to do extraordinary things. You know, some of them made some pretty hefty mistakes, and they did a lot of dumb stuff. And that encourages me because, you know, Moses, God said, you're not going to finish the task, Moses. And, you know, I would have been pretty disappointed if I were Moses and only looked at the promised land and said, are you kidding me? But that we all have, even with our mistakes and even with our flawed character, we could all make differences. But I love that we talked at the beginning of the program about living intentionally and looking for those needs right in front of us. You know, we only have a couple minutes left, and I'm thinking about somebody who's listening to the podcast, say a single mother, overwhelmed with 2 or 3 kids, doing the best she can, saying, well, that's really nice for you guys, but I'm just trying to put food on the table. This doesn't work in my life. You know, finding a need that needs me, or finding my passion, or, you know, feeling ignited by a passion can't be part of my life now. What would you say to that mother?
I think one of the things that we really want people to get from this book is that finding meaning, finding the need that needs you most, giving of oneself, that these aren't outgrowths of privilege, that these are things that everyone can do, but there isn't one size fits all way to do it. These are small things that are big things, and they not only benefit the people who we're reaching out to, but they benefit us. They actually make us feel better emotionally and even physically. So these don't have to be big things. It's just a mindset. And it could be something as small as noticing that someone's walking around and they're lost. And instead of continuing on your way, stopping for 40 seconds and saying, do you need help with directions? You know, there are times in our lives when we have more time, greater resources, our responsibilities aren't as big, and then we can take bigger bites. We can apply ourselves in different ways. But even in the times when we don't have any time to spare, we don't feel like we have any time to spare, and we don't have excess resources because we're just trying to live, even then, there are small things that we can do that do make a difference. They make a difference in the life of the person you're trying to help, and they make a difference because they really do change our outlook. They brighten a day.
Yeah, and there's sometimes even when it's okay to exhibit small acts of kindness to yourself, because we often talk about change makers need to be good at changing themselves, but they also need to be good at taking care of themselves. Sometimes in life, the first project is fortifying the home base and making it strong so that you can go out into the world and affect positive change. So we want to also give people license to say, listen, there are times in life where it's okay to be internal and to get your own family life and your own personal life together so that you are prepared to go out and help others in the future in a more powerful way.
I so appreciate that, because I think that that's very important to tell, you know, single mothers who are exhausted. You know, the 2 points that I heard you say, you know, first you, Jordan, that it really is okay, and not only okay, but good to take time for yourself and focus on yourself and strengthening the family. But then what you also said, Jen, is if you take those little things, those little moments, and you help your neighbor, or you help somebody, find directions, those acts of kindness actually come back to you and elevate your mood. That's what I found, is that you think you're doing it for other people to help them, but it really ends up helping you the most. Well, Jen and Jordan, this has just been a wonderful time. I really so appreciate the work that you're doing and how you're inspiring people. Your book is Dare to Matter, Your Path to Making a Difference Now. Where can listeners get hold of one or both of you?
They can get hold of us on the Vision Spring website, Jordan's social entrepreneurial endeavor. So on visionspring.org, and they can learn more about us. They can learn more about the book, and we love to hear from people. We love to hear how people are doing, what they're getting out of the book. We love for people to share their dare, and they can do that also on social media. So we love the conversations that the book is inspiring. It's why we wrote it, and certainly conversations like this that makes all the work worthwhile.
Yes, and if listeners enjoyed this and want to follow us, I have a Twitter account at Kassalow. They can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and so we're out there continuing the conversation, and we would very much value your listeners continuing to speak with us.
Well, thank you for continuing that conversation.
Now, my points to ponder. 1, listen to the still voice inside you. Most of us at some time or another think, I would love to be able to help so-and-so or do something more with my life that impacts others or changes the world around me. But we never take the time. We never listen to that small voice, and it just kind of dies away until maybe a year or two later it crops up and we just don't know what to do. Well, I encourage you that when that voice comes, pursue it. What do you want to do? Who do you want to help? Write some things down, and then begin in small ways to work those things out. As Jordan says, start here and now in your own way. 2, start small. When you're choosing to begin a new path in your life, we tend to get overwhelmed. We think of too many things to do. We feel that the task is too daunting, too big. It'll take too long. We're afraid to leave behind what we've been doing and jump into another pursuit. But it's really important that we realize we don't have to take a big leap at first. Begin to do small things. Needs out there are great, and many times we feel inadequate. But if we begin by doing a small task for another person, maybe somebody in your neighborhood, maybe somebody at your kid's school, this will grow into a larger and larger mission. If you are somebody like Jordan, you start giving eyeglasses out to the poor people in your city, and then the poor people in your state. And then, it just builds from there. And pretty soon you're going to third world countries to expand your mission and your ministry. Take care of what's right in front of you. And when you've fulfilled a small task, take on another and another. You'll be amazed where you end up. 3, be bold. As Jordan says, wanting to affect change in the world around you takes courage. There's nothing easy about making change in the world around you or even serving those around you. But we need to dare ourselves to look beyond our own feelings and our own comfort and our own desires and push ourselves out of our comfort zone. The cool part about this is that this is exactly where life takes on a deeper richness. So if you have a sense of who, where, and what you would like to accomplish in order to make another person's life better or your own life better or the culture around you better, do it. Start small, jump, and be courageous. I want to thank my guests, Jordan Kassalow and Jennifer Krause. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview. Now let's recap my points to ponder. 1, listen to the still voice inside you. 2, start small. And 3, be bold. So until next time, parents, remember, great kids are raised, not born.
Hey, this is Bobby, producer of Meg Meeker's Parenting Great Kids podcast. Thanks for listening, and because of your dedication to raising great kids, Dr. Meg's Parenting Revolution has grown to over 3 million downloads. Head on over to Facebook and Twitter and follow @MegMeekerMD and check out what's new at megmeeker.com. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter to stay updated and get information about giveaways. Don't forget to share the podcast with other parents, subscribe so you won't miss anything, and leave us a review so we know how we're doing.